Welcome to this video of the St Andrews Model Railway Show, which took place on the 17th and 18th of August 2019 in the Town Hall in St Andrews.
My name's Craig. This is Glasshouse Lawn. It is an O-gauge layout set in the late 70s to mid 80s, based on what would have been had the railway possibly still been open into Alloa at the time. It's got 4 baseboards. They're all laser cut plywood, including the fiddle yard as well, so the baseboards are a kit as well, so there's been no I've not had to do any carpentry myself. It all comes as a kit, including the legs as well, which is really easy. The whole idea for the layout was, I've never had O-gauge before. I was quite interested in starting off in O-gauge. I bought a Darragh 08, I bought some track, and then it sort of grew from there. The track is all Pico track, so it's all ready to run, Pico streamline track and O-gauge. The buildings are a mixture of resin and plaster cast buildings from Skytrex and Ten Commandments. The rolling stock that runs on the layout is a mixture. There's some Dapol locos, some Helljan locos, mostly ready to run. There are some kit-built wagons on the layout as well. The control system's a Digitrax DCC system. I use it on my HO layout at home as well, so I've got all the different components of it, so I was able to get some extra components for this layout as well. It took approximately about a year from start to finish to build it. It isn't really finished yet, but to where it is at the moment, it's been about a year and just over a year to get it to this stage. This is its second show. Its first show was Bonnybridge, our own show. This is its second one, and it's also booked. It's going to another one in October, which is the O-gauge show in Lithgow. It's mostly proprietary models anyway, so it's went together pretty easily. I've not really had any problems in it.
Yeah, I'm Stan Moog. I'm with the Perth Model Railway Group. Today we're exhibiting our layout to the Coeur Railway, which is an American-themed layout. The rather interesting thing about this layout is its unusual scale to gauge ratio. It's modelled in 1/4 inch to the foot scale, which is O-gauge on double O-gauge track. In this case we use the Pico narrow gauge track. So the correct classification for this scale is ON30. The railway is set in the USA, in the state of Idaho, in the 1930s, and represents the small town of Rockford Bay, which is on the edge of the lake, to depict a ferry terminal. The ferry terminal can be seen on the right hand side of the layout and features a tug and a barge which is being loaded with wagons. So the main industries in this town are lumber and mining. So there's also a very scant passenger service. The line is built primarily to handle freight. So you can see various shunting manoeuvres and loading of trains on and off the barge. There's also an off-scene fiddle yard to depict the rest of the line. This layout is quite old. In fact, it was built a number of years ago by one of our members and uses DC control analogue. So the locomotives are conventionally controlled using gauge master controllers. The locomotives are all from Bachmann, and the rolling stock also similarly from Bachmann, with a few kit-built items as well. The main scratch building on this layout is actually the town itself. The buildings are mostly scratch-built or kit-built, but with lots of modifications. In this scale, it's possible to use real timber to model architecture. So the fun is in fact taking timber and modelling it. So, and of course in America in the 1930s, timber was very, very plentiful, and most of the buildings were constructed such. This layout actually is very easy to assemble and very easy to operate, which gives us lots of interaction time with the general public. On the left-hand end of the layout, as viewed, there's a coal loading hopper as well, which is very interesting. The children in particular love watching the train being loaded. So from a mechanical and electrical point of view, the layout is very, very, very simple and works really well.
My name is Ray Nolton, a lifelong model railway enthusiast. I'm a member of the East of Scotland 4mm group, which is an area group of the Scale4 Society. Our main layout, which you may have heard of, is Burnt Island 1883, but we have a variety of other layouts owned by individuals, and we often exhibit as the East of Scotland 4mm group, and in fact that's why we're here today at St Andrews. And this is my layout, United Mills, which is built to P4 standards. It's what they call a cameo layout, in that it represents a small scene, in this case an industrial scene, of a mill somewhere in the Kelty Cowden Beath area. The layout is fairly simple, consists of 2 turnouts and a fiddle yard at either end. It represents a foundry metalworking facility coming towards the end of its life. The reason it's kept its rail connection is because of the poor road connections. Traffic is worked by BR locos and also by United Mills locos, and features a variety of traffic. The layout is DC, very simple. The turnouts are operated by hand-operated Blue Point units underneath the baseboard. The track has 1 single feed, set of isolators. The uncouplers are electromagnets, and the couplings themselves are Alex Jackson couplings, which are used quite frequently by members of the Scale4 Society, which allows automatic uncoupling wherever you've fitted a magnet. The trackside buildings are mostly scratch built, and in fact the layout was inherited in a modern image style from a gentleman in Edinburgh, and I got it as a bare board with just the track and 2 of the buildings, and the rest of the scenery I've done myself. The main mill building is based on a building that still exists, the old granary in Duns. The layout is set somewhere between late 50s and early 60s. The back scene it looks very similar to the Lomond Hills, although in fact it's the Brecon Beacons just behind Hereford, but it is very, very similar to what you would see if you're driving up the M90.
So I'm here with Chris from the Cupar and District Model Railway Club.
Morning, Andrew. Yeah, so we're here with Williamson River, which was brought by club members Ryan and Iron as a stopgap, basically. When we brought the layout, it came in 3 sections, and after some talk in the club room, we decided that we were going to keep the layout, refurbish it, and rebuild it, and use it at exhibitions. So this is its first outing. It is American HO, or European HO, and it's set in Canada around about 2000, and it's a varied stock from Canadian National and Canadian Pacific. On the refurbishment side, we obviously stripped it down. It came in 3 boards. The fiddle yard and the front scenery section being 2 separate panels, which wasn't very good for shows. It was unstable and we had a bit of running problems. We've now fixed that. We've built a new 1-piece board, so the layout comes in 2 sections. A lot of the scenery has been changed and lots have been added on. Bits have been taken off to give a better running sort of performance. A lot of the buildings that you see on there, they're scratch built, kit bashed, or out of the box ready to run. Same with a lot of the stock. A lot of the vehicles have been modified. A lot of the lights have been scratch built using diodes and sensors. And there's even buttons on the front for kids to press, set off fire engine and the police car at the crash scene. So we're just using a gauge master with manually operated points and isolated sections, so that we can run a train in or run a locomotive in, isolate it there, and then run another one in, and it's all analog controlled. So we're quite lucky as a club that we have quite a good spares backup and detailing and scenery sort of like stock within the club. The main challenge has been, obviously we brought the layout in as a stopgap, and it's been rebuilding the new section and setting it out and getting it to run straight. A lot of you will know yourselves, if you buy something in, you don't know the way it's been built up, you don't know how it's been done, what the wiring goes to, no wiring diagram, so you've got to work all this out yourself. And we're lucky we've got quite a good lot of engineers with us, electrical and mechanical, so we've been able to work it out as a team.
How long has it taken you to get it to this stage?
Looking around about 6 months, from stripping it down, finalising the plan, building it up. A layout's the same, everyone's layout's the same. It's never really finished. You've always got things that you want to do. But we're happy that it's a good stage to show the general public now. It's running really well at the minute. Everything's working as it should. Normal things, just keep the track clean and tidy and keep your wheels clean.
I'm Mark, I'm a member of Scottish Modellers, and basically we're a group in Scotland. We all build our own layouts, so this is my layout of Rannoch, which is set on the West Highland line in Scotland. I chose this location simply because I started collecting a load of stock that was suitable for it, and I saw a magazine article set in about 2004 of the sleeper trains running up to Fort William, and I had a look, started researching the line and came across Rannoch, and it just appealed to me with the interesting buildings and the footbridge and the viaduct as well, and I thought it'd make it into a nice scene for a model railway. So I set about finding photos online and marked out the track plan onto some lining paper and wallpaper originally, and then just got to work building it. So the hardest challenge for me was having to scratch build all the buildings, because there's nothing you can buy ready to plant in place. So I did that. It's all laid with Code 100 track, but once it's painted and ballasted, it looks quite effective, and it's been really reliable over the last 10 years since I started building the layout. I'm using digital control, and I use the Gagemaster Prodigy advanced system. So I've had that since 2007, and it's been really reliable, so it's good. All the trains are sound fitted as well, which just adds an extra element, a bit more fun to it as well. So I decided to set the year around sort of 2005, 2007, where the 37s in EWS era were still running on the line, albeit in quite battered condition, just before the sort of 67s and 66s really took over. So it's got quite an interesting mix of stock, of freight and passenger on the line. So this layout took me about 3 years to build, on and off. The main bits was just doing all the scratch building for the buildings, but you can pick bits up, work on one bit and then move on to other aspects of it. So about 3 years to get it to the state it's in.
Did you have any challenges while you were building it?
Yeah, the footbridge kit, it was the first time I'd done an etch brass kit, built one of those, so I had to quite quickly learn how to solder a kit like that together using solder paint, but it was actually a really, really good project to do, and I quite enjoyed doing it in the end. It's done about 8 shows up and down the country. It's done a few in Scotland, and we've been down to England, we've been to Barrow in Furness with it, Burton for the DMU showcase, and also for the Hornby Great Electric Train Show.
Okay, so I'm here with Stephen from the Glenrothes Model Railway Club.
Well, Cadham Bay is basically a fictional layout, but ideas have been drawn from places within Fife and further afield, such as Arbroath Harbour, etc. It's a double low gauge. The layout is actually about 36 foot in length. Buildings are a combination of scratch built and kits. Some of the kits have been bought, but they've been converted to suit the design. The biggest building on the layout is the Bayview Hotel. That was a scratch build, and that took about 2 years to construct. Based from sort of mid-90s right through to modern day.
I know you've got some interesting features on there with the burning buildings and so on. So how have you put all those together?
Right, the burning building, the actual building itself is made up from various kits. The actual smoke is using what they call a smoky generator. That was obtained from March Model Bits down in Wales. It's originally designed for a boat, for puffing out steam on a boat, and we actually adapted it to suit the layout where it was actually blown up through the building and out over the top.
How many operators do you have to keep it going?
We can run by a minimum of 3, but ideally we need the 4th person at the front as the picker-upper if there's anything, because we can't reach the front of the layout from the back.
Okay. Do you run to any particular schedule, or is it just on a first-come, first-served basis?
First come, first served. Each operator operates their section independently, and it's just basically one train goes out, comes back in, one in, one out, basically.
I see you've got quite a big fiddle yard. Do you have any particular order in which stuff goes in and out?
There is an order in the sense that there's, for each section, for the outer section, there's 3 separate lanes in the fiddle yard. One lane split into 2, so you get 2 long trains. The next one's split into 3, so 3 shorter trains, and the next one's split into 5 sections. So we can actually get 2, 5, we can get 10 trains in one section, in one outer loop.
How long did it take to put together?
It took about 2.5 to 3 years to actually get the layout constructed before it went to an exhibition. It's coming on for about 7 years now on the circuit now, the exhibition circuit. Right. Generally it works okay. Occasionally you get a few electrical problems, but it's like every layout, your good days and your bad days. Track joints is sometimes an issue, especially if it's high temperature. We've had one exhibition, we've had major problems with track joints and just things running, just coming off at everything. The club has its own trailer. It was an old caravan chassis, which we built a box in the back of, and basically it's racked in the back of that box. But generally we used to have members that used to tow the trailer, but unfortunately we're restricted now, and now we have to actually hire a van to tow it as well.
So I'm here with Eric, and he's going to describe his layout to us.
Clifton and Lowther came about because I needed another exhibition layout. My previous one was life expired, and the reason I chose the location, it's a real location on the West Coast Main Line, and it's a place I remember quite well from my youth. So it's engaged, although the scenic section on the front does employ a fine scale type track system. It uses code 40 rail, but it's still to 9mm gauge, so you can run standard engaged stuff on it. The era I remember is sort of the late 50s and early 60s when I was a younger child, and the cottages that are modelled on the thing are actually based on the cottages where one of my uncles used to live that we visited quite regularly. The construction of the layout took about 2 years. The fiddle yard at the back was designed to feed trains to the front. I think there's 32 trains in there. That uses Pico code 55. Controls is, we use Kent panel controls through homemade control panels for the points and the track circuits. And the fiddle yard points work with diode matrices, so you press one button to send a train in and press the button at the other end to send the train down. So it's in and out system, and that sets all the points for that road, for that track, and that's all done with diode matrices. There's 8 boards under the layout for those to control those points. Designing diode matrices, I've never done that before. And the other one was fitting the road system in on the scenic section. The way I designed the scenery was to take account of the existing roads that were around that area, and the challenge there was to take the Farragher model, which is basically a Mercedes-Benz, and try and make it somewhat like an English outline model, and that was achieved by using commercial bodies the likes of Oxford and BT. It needs three lorries to work the system. As one lorry comes in, there's a sensor in the road, so it releases the parking stop that the vehicle in front's off, so that drives off. And then the vehicle that's coming in stops on there and waits for someone to come behind to let that one go around. There's only ever one goes down the front at one time because the roads are too narrow. Trains are based on real trains. You know, the Royal Scot. There's a tender first 9F with a lot of empty mineral wagons that goes to Harrison Sides. That was a shunt trip from Carlisle. 2 or 3 times a week. Exhibition-wise, well, it all splits down into 8 boards and goes in 2 racks. Goes in the back of the van, and then a big box for all the bits and pieces, lighting and back scenes and things like that.
I'm here with Aaron from the East Nuke Model Railway Club.
The new layout, Garbridge and St Andrews, an engaged layout based in the late 50s through to the point when the coastline shut in 1965. The layout has been a long time in its creation. Garbridge is pretty much accurate in its size. St Andrews' size a wee bit foreshortened, just to try and get it to work in on the available baseboards. All the buildings are all scratch built, and it's where the work goes in. I think the pair of us that have done the buildings, Duncan Stewart and myself, Duncan mostly did Garbridge and I mostly did St Andrews. Building of the buildings, research, that's what soaks your time up. You learn a lot about the history of an area when you build a prototype. You would never build a layout like that out of your imagination. Take the St Andrews station Well, that was the second one in St Andrews. That was only opened and created once the coastline was built. The first one was down at the links where the old Course Hotel is. So obviously when they built the extension to Coeur, the station came up into the town a bit closer. And then in the 50s, they built the bus garage next to it. And they built the bus stances and all in the offices. And in its day, St Andrews was held up as a model of modern transport, station right next to the bus garage and the bus stances. You couldn't have thought of a better way of doing it. It's analogue, it's turn the power on and the trains move. There's no point having sound at an exhibition N-gauge layout. The point work's all controlled, push button, but it's done electronically through a brain. There's modules under the baseboards that control the points. All the points in the fronts are like cobalt motors. The fiddle yard itself goes with other club layouts. There's a lot of money and investment and time and effort goes into building fiddle yards, so you don't build a new one for every layout. It's its first outing as a finished layout, so there was the odd wiring issue to sort out because you're marrying in a fiddle yard, and for the first couple of shows, you tend to be debugging things. You're getting used to running it as well. Make sure the points are clean as well, because when you don't run layouts at the clubs, or we don't run them much, things get dirty when you're building new layouts. But once you get the first outing out the way, then make your list up of debugging jobs and get on with it. We've had a point break in the fiddle yard already, but the fiddle yard's 15 years old.
So I'm here with Ewan from the Aberdeen Model Railway Club.
So the layout that we've brought today to the St Andrews show is City of Tears. And City of Tears was a final layout within the TV show The Great Model Railway Challenge on Channel 5 that aired last year. The whole aim of the final of the TV series was that the Star Train would travel through a journey through time. So we had all 5 different teams had a different time period that they chose, and we decided to do something completely different to anything that we had seen at model railway exhibitions across the country. And as a club, we decided that we wanted to go into the future. So once the train had gone through each of the 4 layouts before us, it would then fly into the sky and then go into the future, into something that was completely different. What is interesting about this layout is that we have a forced perspective in the vertical direction, which we had never seen before, and we have managed to use multiple gauges. So if we start from the top of the layout, we have the Star Train, which flew through the sky, is a 00 train. It then can fly over the sky on 2 different lines. As we go down, going down into a more poorer area of the layout where we're starting to get smog, we also have a 00 layout, which is a basic dog bone loop. And then if we go further down, we then have an N gauge at the bottom, which whizzes past to take a lot more passengers across the city. And we've managed to do that as well by changing the heights of the buildings and having these scene blocks, but in a vertical direction, but also allowing zones to allow focus so that when you're standing at the top, you can see right down to the bottom. The whole layout is controlled by a lens system, and then that goes through an app called TouchCab, which is designed by 2 members of the club in partnership with their company KMS Railtech. So we're able to control all of these trains with an iPad or iPhone and be able to control any signals and lights that we want to as well, where possible. Yeah, so the final layouts, we all had plain baseboards and we had to get a whole layout built within 30 hours. So it was a lot of time pressure. On our time scale, we kind of tried to plan it so that we would have about 10 hours per line, but the bottom, the N gauge, having none of us in the team worked on N gauge, found out very hard on the final that it takes just as long to build a small N gauge as it does a big 00, and so the bottom layer took nearly 2 days to complete. So once we had managed to complete that, we were really against the clock to build it up, and I think everyone in the production team and the judges, as well as all the other team members in all the heats, were a bit shocked on how quickly it went up into the sky. On the final, it had to be nothing pre-built, all built on the day in those 30 hours, from the plain baseboards up to the final product that you see on TV and see here today. So all of the buildings on our layout are scrap build. We wanted to show people that you don't have to spend a lot of money to create what we think is a very impressive layout. So we used old drainage pipes for skyscrapers as it went into the future. All of the N-gauge buildings at the bottom are just printed pieces of paper wrapped around polystyrene. And then we try to enhance them a wee bit using Merg kits. So we have random lights that are flashing in each of the buildings, a fire going on, and also lights through LEDs into the back scene to try and make the whole thing alive. The layout is very fragile. It was designed to last for 30 seconds on TV. We've been lucky enough to be able to take it to Worley's National Model Railway exhibition, and we had it at Model Rail Scotland, and we've managed to start bringing it into a lot more local Scottish exhibitions, and great to be able to bring it here to St Andrews before our show in October. Well, we're very grateful to be part of the inaugural Great Model Railway Challenge and to be the winners of it, and we really look forward to seeing the new series that airs this later on this month without all the stress of having to build it ourselves.
Check out some of the other full-size and model rail videos I have on my channel. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.